I think I'm gonna be sick. And so they take my son away from me and they give me a bucket, and I'm holding my bucket when I should be holding my son, and I get sick. And as I'm getting sick, I feel terrible. It's not just like getting sick, I feel terrible. And I feel something. And I know it's probably not right, but I can feel something gushing. And I'm sorry if this gets a little gross. It definitely gets a little gory, and so just disclaimer. So if you are a little squeamish, this probably isn't the video for you, but it's just what happened. And so I'm just gonna tell it and document it for my memory, and then also maybe to help someone if they go through the same thing. So I feel this gushing feeling, and I tell my nurse, and I'm like, I think something came out. And I didn't know how to explain it. Like I said, I've never had birth before, so I don't know what there is to still be in there, but I felt a major gush. So she's like, okay, are you feeling okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm really thirsty and I just don't feel well. So she's like, all right, let me take a look. And there was blood, and lots of blood. And it wasn't just blood, it was huge blood clots. And so she was like, okay, let me go get the doctor, and we'll check everything out, make sure everything's okay. She was so sweet and so kind, and she really just kept us calm in that moment. And I remember thinking, like, is this normal? Like, she's not acting like it's not normal. So like, I guess I'm sick from pushing for so long, or from like all the medication they've put in my body, and I haven't eaten all day and I haven't really drank anything. So I'm guessing it's just normal. And so she brings in the house doctor, and this is a doctor I've never seen before, because remember, my doctor had left for the night. It's her birthday. She's enjoying her time with her family now. And the house doctor comes in, and I do not like her bedside manner at all. She's very abrasive, and she was very, she just wasn't very kind. And my doctor, I had chosen my doctor because she's very sweet. She's very just calm. Her presence is very calm, and I knew that's what I needed in that moment. And this house doctor wasn't that way, and that's fine. It just wasn't a good fit for me, but I had no choice. She was the doctor on call at the hospital at that time, so she was just the one that was there. So she decides that she doesn't even tell me anything really. She just takes some packing, and she tells me that they're gonna insert some packing into my uterus to stop the bleeding. And if you've had a baby, you know that one of the worst parts of having a baby is afterwards. They push on your stomach, and they push on your stomach, and they push on your stomach super hard. It's not lightly. They push on it super hard to shrink your uterus back down to its size. And so my nurse had been doing that, and it was fine at that time. Like, it was fine. I was tolerating it. But so they insert this packing, and they still are pushing. And every time they're pushing on my stomach, more blood is gushing out, and more clots are gushing out. And so my nurse is like a little concerned. You can tell she's a little concerned, but the doctor just puts some packing in. They say it'll stop the bleeding, and the doctor leaves the room. So around this time, I'm feeling a little bit okay. They let me have a little bit of water because they weren't really sure what was going on. And so they let me have a little bit of water, but told me not to drink a whole lot. And so I remember thinking, like, all I wanted to do was chug that water so much, but I definitely listened, and I took it slow because I knew my stomach was upset. So things kind of settle back down in my room. I'm feeling okay again. I'm laying down. I'm just enjoying my son. They hand him back to me. The moment they handed him back to me, I got sick again. And I was like, I'm gonna get sick. I cannot hold him. Like, I am going to get sick. So they gave me the bucket again, and the process happens again. I get really sick, and the nurse has to call the doctor back in again. And all of the packing had come out, more clots had come out, and she's still pushing on my stomach. And each push is just still gushing and gushing and gushing. Now this time, I'm starting to not feel good in other ways. I'm starting to feel my heart race, and I'm feeling weak. And so they put the blood pressure cuff back on me, and they put the heart monitor on me again. And at this point, I'm like, okay, there's something going on. And then this time also, they had been sticking like one of those long bed pads underneath, and they had been sticking those under to kind of catch all of the blood that had been gushing out. And my nurse actually took it over to the scale that they weigh the babies on when they're born, and she put it on there. And I can remember thinking, okay, she's taking note of how much blood I'm losing. Something must really not be right. But she was still so calm. She was so calm. And so I didn't ask any questions. I just kind of assumed that this is a normal thing that happens to women. And it's not. If this happens to you, it's not normal. So ask questions. But I was young and I was a new mom, and I just kind of figured everything would be fine. But I do remember thinking like, okay, something more is going on here. And then they kind of were noticing a pattern. So the nurse didn't leave my room after the second time that it happened. She stayed by my bedside, and the doctor came back in and actually stuck more packing up into my uterus. And again, that's not very comfortable after you've had a 3rd-degree tear and your belly has been pushed on over and over and over, and you're just not even feeling well. All of those things combined make it even more miserable. And so I'm starting to just feel tired. I've been laboring all day and I'm tired, and all I really want to do is just hold my son. I've been waiting so long to have him, and all I want to do is hold him, but I'm already feeling a little bit weak. And so I just lay down. They have the lights really dim, and they notice that my heart rate skyrockets and my blood pressure drops, and then I get sick. And it's this process that happens over and over and over again. And every time I get sick, the force of my stomach tightening is forcing all this packing back out of me every single time. And the doctor just keeps coming in, putting in packing, and they're weighing it every time. And eventually, around the 3rd or 4th time that it happened, I knew that I wasn't going to make it. And I knew that things were really wrong. And I can just remember seeing my husband holding my son in the corner of the room. And because I had asked him to go hold him, because I just wanted one of us to hold him. And he was standing in the corner of the room, and I asked him to come over to me, and he came over, and I told him that I was so glad that it was me and not Judah. I was so glad that if there was going to be something wrong, that it was wrong with me and not our son. And I can remember, I didn't think I was going to cry, but I can remember telling my husband to tell him that I loved him and to make sure that he knew how much I loved him. And so he did. He told him right then and there, and he did. My husband didn't really understand what was going on at the time, and I didn't either, but at this time, like, my body had just lost so much blood, and I was at that moment of dying where you're just at peace. And so I think I had been like just thinking things were normal until I got to the point where I was like, it's not normal, I'm dying, and there's nothing I can do about it at this point. And so my nurse is standing right there, and like I said, she was just so sweet, and I'm just so thankful for her. But she kind of just kept saying, like, it's gonna be okay, you're gonna be okay. And I can remember, like, right after I told him that, I asked him just to pray for me, and he prayed over me, and I ended up getting sick again. And that time that I got sick was the time that I actually, like, I stopped responding. My blood pressure was just so low, and my heart rate was so high that I actually, like, was having a hard time breathing. And they had put the oxygen mask on me, and I can remember I'm just laying completely flat now, and I can feel all of this poking and prodding going on to my body, and I can hear the nurse call for the doctor. And the doctor had been in the room a couple of times, but she wasn't really rushing into the room anytime, and she wasn't really coming in quickly. And when she did, all she did was put packing in and leave. She didn't say anything, and she was just acting like we were a big waste of her time, basically. And so when she came into the room each time, there was no, like, changing up her plan at all. She just kept putting in more packing, and then my nurse would help me, and it would all come back out. And I was just losing so much blood. And I'm laying down flat and I can hear what's going on around me and they're talking to me, but I'm not able to respond. My eyes are closed and I'm so cold, and they had put so many blankets on me and were trying to keep me warm. And I can remember hearing another nurse come in, and she washed her hands quickly and said, "What can I do to help?" And in that moment, I just knew like this was the end for me. And then the nurse told her something, my nurse told her something, but I really don't know what she said. And then a whole flood of nurses came in, and I know that there was so much going on all around me, but again, I have no idea. I know they needed to change my bedding at one point, and so they were like moving my bed and moving me all around, and I was just moaning and groaning because I felt so terrible. And I still have no idea what's wrong with me at the moment. All I know is I'm getting sick and I'm losing too much blood. And I hear the nurse get on the phone and she calls for the doctor, and the doctor never comes. So she gets on the phone again and she's like, "I need the doctor." And I don't know what was said on the other line, but she very, very sternly said, "No, now." And remember when I told you she was in the ER? I 110% believe that her being in the ER, she had seen people die. She knew the end stages of life, and I think she saw me in that moment, and just she knew that it was now or it was going to be too late. And so the doctor came in, and all the nurses are all around me, and like I said, I can hear everything that's going on, and I'm not able to respond to them anymore. And all of a sudden I feel the doctor's hand way up in my stomach. My hands were resting on my stomach like this, and I could feel the doctor's hand pushing from the inside. And it was not gentle, and it was, I was feeling pretty miserable as it was. And then I feel like lots of tugging on the inside and lots of pulling and lots of pushing. And then finally they said, "We got it." And so in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, Kia, hold on, just hold on a little longer. They've got it. Whatever it is, you're good. Just hold on. And my nurse kind of bent down close to my face, and she was like, "You had some retained placenta and they got it out. Like this should stop the bleeding and you're going to be okay. You're going to be fine now." And she was right. After they got it out, it was about the size of a dime, a piece of placenta that had not fully detached from my uterus that was causing all of this hemorrhaging. And I was so weak. I couldn't do anything. And all I wanted was my son. I remember how perfect life felt with him just a couple hours ago. And now over the course of 4 hours, I can't even muster up the strength to hold up my arms enough to hold him. And I remember feeling relieved that I was alive. I can remember thinking, okay, I'm alive. I'm going to be okay. They got it out. And my nurse didn't leave my room pretty much at all for the rest of the time that she was on the clock. And that was pretty much all throughout the night. And so my doctor comes in the morning, and she is ticked. She is so mad. And I remember thinking like it was something I did, and she told me that what happened that night should have never happened, and they should have called her. The doctor on call was actually supposed to have called her, and she never got that call. My nurse actually was the one to call her and let her know what had happened, and it was after the fact. And she didn't blame my nurse at all, because my nurse did the right thing. My nurse was by my side where she should have been, where a doctor should have been in those moments. And but my nurse, after things had calmed down, had called my doctor and let her know what happened. And she came in the morning and she was so mad, and she just reassured me that like I was gonna be okay, but I was gonna need a blood transfusion. I had just lost way too much blood, and the average body has about 4 liters, and they told me I had lost 2. And you can pretty much lose 40% of your blood before you start dying. And so that gives you an idea of how close to death I was. I was right on the brink. Like, I know had I hemorrhaged one more time, I wouldn't be sitting here. And so I ended up having a double blood transfusion that pretty much took the whole first day, and all I wanted was my son on my chest. And I can remember the moment that I was feeling good enough to hold him again. I just had him on my chest, and I felt so relieved that he brought so much peace. And I can remember I couldn't really open my eyes, and I couldn't really hold him, so they leaned my bed all the way down so that he could just kind of lay on my chest. And that moment just brought me so much healing. And so I can remember his scent that he had on him, and it was that scent, and I can still smell it. Like right now as I'm sitting here telling you this, I can still smell the scent. And it just brought so much healing and so much peace, and just knowing that we had made it, like we were okay. And obviously, you know, I lost so much blood, which made me lose a ton of weight. I never even looked pregnant. If I can find pictures, I'll try to have thrown them up throughout this so you can kind of see how swollen I was when I'm holding him, what I look like afterwards. People thought I bounced back really fast, but really I just almost died. And so I lost a ton of blood. And so there's just a couple of things that I'm really thankful for. One, my husband, I'm super thankful for him. He was such a good support. And through it all, even afterwards, it took probably like 3 or 4 months for me to really be back to normal. And he carried a lot of that weight of caring for our son early on. I was just still so weak in the first couple of months that I couldn't do a lot, and he took a lot of that on. And then I also had a lot of postpartum depression for about 2 weeks after him, because just everything I had gone through, it had really just changed me. And so I was sad a lot because of how much blood I lost. I was never able to breastfeed him after that first time, and so that brought some depression too, because as a mom you kind of think that that's what you're gonna do. And so that was kind of like a big trigger for me, because I really wanted to feed him, and he was really good at it the first time we did it, but because of something completely out of our control, I wasn't able to. And so that was like a trigger. When people asked if I was breastfeeding or if I was bottle feeding, I would just instantly start crying, which I feel terrible about. And now looking back, it's so silly, because I'm just thankful that he was fed, but it was a big trigger for me in the moment, because it was something that I really had high hopes for us to be able to do, and it was nothing of our own fault that we weren't able to. And so my husband was just awesome through that. But really the nurse, she saved my life. I mean, honestly, had she not been there, had she not put her foot down when it was time for it, she really just advocated for me. And I know that a lot of nurses don't really get the appreciation that doctors get, or, you know, the big praise that doctors get. But my whole time in there, my nurse was the one that was by my side, and she was the one that really made sure I was okay. She kept me comfortable, she kept me calm. And I just think nurses are awesome, and I'm really, really blessed that she was the nurse that we had that night. And I think God ordained all of that, and I just really think that's really a really cool part of our story. So the last little bit of this story, I know it's kind of getting long, but the last little bit of this story is about a week after I had my son, I started having gallbladder issues. And I had had it once during pregnancy, and then I hadn't had it for a couple of months. But after I had him, my gallbladder was like really acting up, and so I was having like gallbladder attacks. And one time I had to go to the hospital for it, and this is like, our son is a week old. We had just gotten out of the hospital, and I'd gone to the hospital, to the ER, and I had to tell my birth story, because I wasn't sure if it was my gallbladder or something else going on. So I told them how our birth went, and they looked at me and they were like, "Oh yeah, we heard about that." And I was kind of surprised that the ER heard about my labor story. Like, that was kind of weird to me, but I thought, well, maybe because my nurse used to be here, maybe she told someone, or, you know, I just thought it was that. Well, come to find out, I eventually had when my son was 2 or 3 weeks old, I had my gallbladder removed, and everything was fine after that. But in the coming months, when I went to go follow up with my doctor, my OB, she actually told me that the doctor that was on call, my doctor actually ended up getting her fired from the hospital, because she didn't do what she should have done that night, and she broke a lot of protocol. And basically she did everything wrong that night, and because of that she lost her job. So that's a little interesting to know that, you know, I kind of got a doctor fired, but what can you do? You know, I didn't know any different, and I obviously had no part in that. But yeah, so that is our birth story, and I just thought with Nurses Week, just telling a story that really explained how awesome nurses are, and then with Mother's Day and our son's birthday, I just thought it was really appropriate to share that story with you guys. So if you guys have a crazy birth story or anything like that, please leave it down below. I'd love to hear your guys' stories. So if you guys have any questions or anything, just leave it all in the comments below, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks guys. Bye.